Clay, as we move into the next episode of Star Trek Voyager, which is Dreadnought, I have to ask, it's sure lucky that the DS9 crew never had to deal with these things in the Cardassian Dominion War, because it seems like it might have been a problem if they had actually run up against this Cardassian super weapon that can destroy planets and everything in its path. If they had run into it once, it might have been a big deal. But luckily, the only one they've got sent off 75,000 light years away. Never to deal with it.
Yeah, that's surprised nobody brought that up.
What happened to our penis ship? Where is it?
We only built one of them, and I don't know what happened. It's gone.
Another
really,
show,
that's kind of a lot of weaponry just to lose there. Like, well, yeah, cost of doing business.
War's going well, all things considered. This is early in the Dominion War, obviously, so things are looking on the up and up. Gul Dukat is sitting in Sisko's office with his baseball. Everything's going well, but we'll see. Maybe they don't need the Dreadnought. This is Dreadnought. It's the 17th episode of Season 2. We're going through these at a decent pace, it seems like. We're already up to number 17. First aired on February 12th, 1996. Written by Gary Holland. Directed by LeVar Burton. In Universe Date 49447.0, which is 2372. In Dreadnought, Voyager encounters Dreadnought, a Cardassian missile that B'Elanna Torres reprogrammed during her time in the Maquis. Even though lost in the Delta Quadrant, the missile still believes it's on a Maquis mission in the Alpha Quadrant, setting an intercept course with an inhabited world. It's the second of at least 2 episodes where B'Elanna Torres becomes obsessed with some kind of technology and tries to fix it and make it better. And it says, no, I'm going to be a war machine instead. It's another B'Elanna Torres episode. I guess I think my general takeaway from this one is I thought it was okay. Mm-hmm. It's an episode that requires a tremendous amount of buy-in on the viewer's part. It felt like it was sort of satisfying and unsatisfying at the same time. It's one of these things that's like every trick that happened felt like the writer just pulled it out of their ass as a way to get out of a problem that they had. Right. And it just adds up to a point where you're just like, all right, none of this really is really amounting to anything, but we'll see how it ends. What'd you think?
Yeah, I liked it. I felt like they had a little bit more thematically, subtextually going on than they really wanted to get into, like with B'Elanna making her own voice the voice of the weapon and stuff.
Yeah, her past voice, her young voice, dealing with her young decisions. Yep. Yeah,
and like, the idea of the consequences of your actions in wartime, or the cost of war and all that kind of stuff. But they didn't really get into that.
No, it's a good idea for an episode, and they kind of artfully avoid it without completely avoiding it. You know what I mean? Like, they just don't get into it.
Yeah, what I kind of wish that this was like after this episode came out, there was an internal franchise-wide memo that was like, okay, we can't do ticking clock stories anymore, because this is just like the biggest ticking. It's got everything you could possibly. Not only does it have the ticking clock of the weapon itself, but on top of that, they also throw in the ticking clock of the self-destruction of Voyager.
Yeah, a lot.
So it's like every possible variation of there was a bomb about to go off, and we have X amount of time before it goes off is in this episode.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good.
Why can you walk around inside the missile?
Great question. I don't know why that missile needs a living room. I mean, pretty spacious too. I mean, where I am, that probably goes for like $500,000. It's got a bathroom.
It's got a bathroom. It's got multiple sections. You can go into the doors. You can go into the little tube. It's got life support inside it for an unmanned spaceship. Like, it's a missile. It's not supposed to be manned, but it has life support in it. That's the thing that I found a little bit distracting about it. Is it's just this like even its setup, it's like this missile got caught up in the caretaker thing that brought Voyager, and it just shot off on its own course, and Voyager has somehow found it. You know what I mean? Like they were going in the same direction, and then B'Elanna also is the one who reprogrammed the thing in the first place.
Yeah.
It's a lot of coincidences stacked up on each other. And even though I agree with you that I really like the B'Elanna, like, this is kind of an atoning for mistakes of our past stuff, she doesn't. Instead of any kind of introspective thing, it turns into a minor version of Kirk sabotaging the computer by out-logicking it, where she's like trying to trick the computer, but the computer is a very crafty computer, and it's like, I knew you were going to do that, B'Elanna Torres, so that's why I did this. And so it leads to this, I don't know if you want to call it like a cat and mouse thing, but it's this endless chasing something that disappears down a hole only to appear somewhere else, and then they chase that out of the other hole. That the thing, it's like, it's just extremely all over the place in terms of any kind of like consistent problem that you have on the small scale. I found it a little bit frustrating.
Yeah, it's you're essentially working with this program, self-aware program that really doesn't have any limitations to what it can do.
Yeah. Except it can't realize the truth. It's frustrating. Yeah.
Well, actually my favorite part of the episode is when it's like towards the end, and it's talking about how B'Elanna is she's an adherent to the Delta Quadrant deception, and I was like, oh, tell me your thoughts on January 6th.
But Dreadnought has been reading a lot of blogs about where exactly it is in space. Yeah, the dialogue between them is funny, where she's like, Dreadnought, why don't you play a game with me? And it's like, okay. And she's like, take for example the fact that we're over here, and it's like, I'm not going to play that game. She's like, Dreadnought, you have to play the game. And it's just a strange.
It's a weird setup. Like, I'm surprised that they didn't get into more of the subtextual stuff, only because this episode is B'Elanna Torres talking and sparring with like what seems to be one of the greatest computer programs ever put together.
Yeah,
that she like, as far as capability and maneuverability and ability to think and adjust, and it's got her voice. So like the implication here is kind of like it's Torres fighting herself and sparring with herself and the cost of her own ingenuity, and all they do is just kind of like use it to kind of dick around for a bit.
Yeah,
and be like, you're in the Delta Quadrant. I think not. No, you are. Nuh-uh. It's like, okay.
You'd think it would have to be more of a personal attempt to persuade this thing that it's making the wrong decision to do stuff, because it's supposed to be B'Elanna convincing herself of her past mistakes. It's the issue is that their disagreement is mostly a technical thing about it doesn't believe her, really. And so it's going to put up all these roadblocks. I just feel it would be it's more thematic and character interesting if it's like B'Elanna has to actually convince this thing that what it's doing is the wrong thing to do, That would maybe create more of a problem where the missile becomes basically like a data starship, where you can reason with it and stuff like that. But if you're not going to do that, I don't know. It's not for an episode where she has to spend so much of her time alone talking to herself. It has to be more interesting than just a computer program looking for deceptive outcomes that it can pull on people or not be pulled and stuff like that. I don't know if that's super clear. It doesn't strike me as the personal story that it probably should have been if all you're going to do is have B'Elanna talk to herself.
Yeah, the part where I kind of like my eyebrow went up the first time as to what they were trying to pull is after the initial thing when she thinks she shut it down and then it just powers back up and flies off. And she goes like, I thought I shut down your stuff. It's like, yes, you did think that, but I fooled you. I lied to you. You stupid person.
It needs the Omega Virus board game voice. It's like 25 minutes till I fly off. Ha, ha, ha.
We're receiving
I laughed too when it flew away. Yeah, it's funny.
We're receiving a broadcast from the missile. Let's hear it. Psych!
It's just the just like insert meme gif here or something like that about how this thing is treating B'Elanna. Yeah, it's funny because I actually like the bones of it. I think it's actually kind of if you can get past all of the contrivances that allow you to get to this point, it's kind of a neat idea to have Voyager chasing this missile that's going after one planet and it's obliterating everything on its path and stuff like that. It's kind of fun. There's something interesting. And then, building a relationship with this species that they believe that what the Kazon tell them, apparently, on their Facebook posts about what the Voyager is doing.
Yeah, everybody's just getting some bad intel on Voyager from the K. Like, what? How big is the message board group?
I know.
That the Kazon is putting all this bullshit on. Why
did they believe them so much?
Yeah, great question.
It's so I guess maybe a broader way to go into this one is I was also struck in this episode by Voyager's serialization attempts. I find it really weird what they do in this show. Like
strange, weird choices for sure.
So they're serialized. There are multiple serialized plots that the show almost treats as if they are unimportant, non-continuous, like one-off scenes in these episodes. So, for example, the Wildman pregnancy has been going for a while, right? It never feels like it's going to amount to anything. It's just this woman who has random conversations with the doctor about being pregnant. They have this treacherous crewman who's talking to the Kazon, which has been in like 15 episodes, it feels like, and they've never developed it to anything,
Yeah, I honestly thought when the thing kicked back up after B'Elanna left the first time, I thought it was going to be that dude had like
triggered it somehow.
Yeah, had transported himself onto it or something and was stealing it or something.
There's that. This one has a continuation from last episode where Paris and Chakotay are still at each other's throats. Interestingly,
yes.
What is up with this?
Something? Yeah, something's going on with Paris, where he's just like
drinking and fucking all night.
Yeah,
and not getting to work. I don't know.
Yeah, that stuff was weird. Like it's.
What's the show doing with serialization? Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt, but like, what is it trying to do?
I'm not sure. I was just gonna say at least the other two stories have some sort of precedence for them, whereas the Paris and Chakotay one just is like the woman having a baby. Okay, well, sure, it's a woman having a baby in a very unusual circumstance. I can understand why you might want to check in on that from time to time.
Yeah.
The guy who's the traitor, that's pretty gnarly stuff he's doing. I can understand why you'd want to check in on that from time to time. In both of these situations, we know the how and the why of why they keep going back to this. Unless I missed something, I have no idea what the catalyst for the Paris stuff is, and I'm sure that's part of the point. But it just feels so weird.
Yeah,
because it's just sort of 1 or 2 minutes of him getting chastised per episode with no real repercussion past that.
Yeah,
until I'm sure, the episode where Janeway has to go to Les Chez Fuck or whatever the name of the place is,
and
bring him back from his bender he's been going. Can you go on a holodeck bender?
Now with the rations that they're giving out for their holodeck usage, I don't think. Yeah, I mean, to me, it felt a direct continuation off of whatever episode that was the last time where he was taking bets in the Chez Fuc and Chakotay yelled at him, and it ended with just them being angry at each other. And this felt like a feed from that into this. But as you're saying, I don't know where it's coming from. And what makes it similar to the other attempts at serialization is that none of the scenes feel like they develop their story at all.
Right.
It just feels like it's treading water until, that Wildman is pregnant. You know that this guy is talking to the Kazon. I find the Kazon one the most egregious because it seems like it's supposed to be hinting at something big, but he never tells them anything of note. Or there's no impact to anything that he tells them.
Yeah, if I wish they would do one where the Kazon guy is just kind of like more annoyed that this guy keeps calling him.
Is there someone over there who's actually on the bridge that we can talk to?
I mean, it's like it ends up sounding like he's talking to a 5-year-old who's trying to explain to you the episode of Thomas the Train Engine he just watched.
I mean, the height of his drama is he's like, I need to talk to Seska. And the guy's like, I'm not going to let you do that. He's like, I really need to talk to Seska. And the guy's like, you can talk to me instead. And I don't know. I think it's real bad. I think it's real bad serialization. It reminds me strongly of Enterprise serialization, where it's just a thing that happens over and over again, and it doesn't build. It's not even DS9 did it. Like a world building type of serialized story better than this. Like just it felt consistent, and every time you saw a character, it was not literally the same thing happening over and over again.
Well, I don't want to give or not give the benefit of the doubt to the writers, but it kind of has that stink about it of something that they don't know what the ending is.
Yeah.
It's like we've got this idea, we're kind of rolling with it, and it's like, okay, this will build to something eventually. We don't really know what that is yet, but we were just throwing it in there to kind of spice things up a bit as we're going along, which is fine. But like those things tend to feel a lot more meandering if you don't know exactly what, not necessarily where, but what your endpoint is.
Yeah, I mean it comes down to the Kazon chasing them is just the Kazon chasing them. There's nothing larger than that. Like the Kazon want Voyager's technology, but there is no Mage Cullah narrative drive to anything that he's doing beyond getting technology from them. There's nothing interesting that you can check in and see what he's up to or what he's plotting because this is happening. Yeah. It feels really Enterprise-y. They apparently just never really understood how they needed to do this in terms of plotting. It's Voyager's is particularly egregious. Maybe it's even worse than Enterprise's in the fact that it's almost possible to not even realize that there seems to be a season-long story going on in the background. I think the Kazon are supposed to be a season spine to the narrative, and it never feels that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I actually think, oddly enough, the Paris one, I bet that's something that they do have the endpoint figured out. Mm-hmm. Like that seems like something where they're like, okay, we've got this disaffected Paris who is having some sort of crisis that we need to get to. How do we get there? The other ones, not so much. Like outside of eventually. Like I don't know, because like the Seska one, the trader one. I feel like that could either build to something exciting or they could kind of hit the eject button and one episode he just gets like phasered to death or something, you know? Like I feel like you can pull the plug on that fairly easily and have it be not feel like a total waste of time. I don't know what's going to go on. I don't know what's going to happen with the pregnancy one. That one seems
one's
like,
strange.
But that's I think I mind that one the least because that one at least feels like world building and
it does. It's the first baby born on this journey back home. Yeah.
Just day-to-day life. You get into the name thing, which is fun.
Yep.
Where the doctor is basically like he's like, well, I wanted to name my kid 7. And the other person,
Jerry.
That stuff is fun. Like, and that furthers along the doctor's thing about finding a name a little bit, which is nice to touch back in on that.
Yeah,
because nobody's asked him about it because nobody gives a shit.
Yep.
But it's odd. I don't hate the idea, frankly, of what they're doing. I just don't know if they are doing it in a way that feels like they know where they're going necessarily.
Yeah,
because it is kind of it is an interesting way to handle the split between episodic and serialized by just keeping the episodes episodic and then having these little tiny serialized bits going through.
Right.
Which is even different than the way that they kind of do it that we've talked about before, where it's like, oh, you've got the one overarching thing that they touch back in on over the season. This is like a lot smaller than that.
Yep.
Which I don't hate the idea, but
It seems
I do think you're
go
kind
ahead,
of. I was just gonna say I do think you are in a little bit of danger of losing the road a little bit if you're doing that.
To me, it feels like they're veering too close. Like I think that the closest point of comparison is the Xindi arc in Enterprise, right?
Sure.
Where I at least felt like I knew that there was a Xindi arc as that season was happening, right? Like they're fairly overt about what they're doing. However, you can still kind of catch an episode or miss an episode, and it didn't really affect things that drastically until you got to the end of the season, where they had sort of a couple episodes in a row that tied everything up. The Voyager attempt feels to me that they are absolutely terrified that they cannot include any change event in those storylines, because if a person misses the episode, they'll be confused as to what happens in the next one.
Yeah.
And so it feels like a lot of just repeating the trope with a character, which is okay in some sense of like, I agree, like the Wildman baby feels appropriate in some ways. The Kazon one feels less appropriate. And the Paris one just feels kind of out of left field as to why it's happening that way. I don't think that, I think Voyager's weaknesses with it is that they could probably embrace it a little more strongly, even like just maybe have, it never feels like Voyager is talking about the Kazon threat until the Kazon appear. There's never this looming presence of bad things are happening. How are we going to talk about it? What the hell's going wrong with Paris and stuff like that? It all feels like it pops up and makes an appearance and then goes away, and no one ever thinks about it outside of the times that they're actively having an episode about it.
Yeah. Like even in this one, when they're talking to the Chancellor, whose name was Kevin, I think.
Yeah, there's something like that. I can look him up. He's down here somewhere.
When he's like, we've heard about what you're doing, and even then Jane was like, have you been talking to don't listen to Kazon, bunch of idiots. You know, like it's even though they've been this foil for them, they're very dismissive of the Kazon. So it doesn't even really it's not that interesting.
No, his name is Kellen. Good Irish name. Just looking to see if there's anything. Lorem is the guy that he was talking to. Yeah, it's. I thought it was just kind of just fine and dandy. I was noticing that there's someone keeping track of the photon torpedo count that the ship has done, and let me see. Photon torpedoes. So Voyager uses 7 photon torpedoes in this episode, having previously used 1 in alliances. This brings the total number of torpedoes used to 11, of which the irreplaceable complement of 38 was established in the cloud. So they've used quite a bit of their torpedoes to this point. We'll see if that comes back to haunt them down the line. Anything else about this one? What's do you like Torres-centric episodes?
I like this one, yeah. I mean, I thought it was pretty good.
As a Torres piece? Her other one was Prototype, I guess, the robot man.
Yeah, it's better than that one.
Yeah, it is better than that
well,
one.
It's interesting, though, because it is kind of a piece with that one to a certain extent.
Same idea, yeah.
Yeah, because it's... I mean...
The
this
war
one
machine. She's trying to fix a war machine, basically, you know?
Yeah, but it doesn't have that, playing God aspect of it that the other one kind of did. It's less Frankenstein-y.
It's true. It's more personal, less... what have you wrought upon us type thing.
Yeah, this one is more about fixing a war machine. The last one was more about fixing, fostering a what's the word I'm looking for? Helping a group of people survive, which then turned out to be a war machine. I don't know if she was completely aware at the time she was helping, but
yeah,
it's an interesting choice for her.
I don't know where I stand on her as a character. I don't know if I like her that much.
I think the problem with her is kind of built into this episode a bit, where I think there's a lot you can do, but they're not really getting into much of it, because she does have a certain confidence that borders on cockiness to her.
Yeah.
About what she knows and what she can do. And I think this episode would have been a good place to push back on that, where if you in your cold open lean into her being kind of a prick about setting the clock on the coffee machine or something. And then you get into this stuff where she now has to face off with someone who is equally as cocky as her because she designed it and after her own person.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think that she's there might not be as much meat on the Maquis bone at this point that they can return to without it feeling sort of ethereal or something. Like I just don't. Whenever the characters have the Maquis plot, it now feels that they are so divorced from that background and that setup that it no longer registers as like a legitimate concern that they should have anymore.
Right.
I don't know. It's tough because the Maquis weren't particularly well developed, and it's not like the crew has always had this splintering personality or like competing alliances between the crew and Starfleet. So it's hard to take her concerns seriously or to really feel that she as a character has changed because I've only ever seen this B'Elanna in my history with the show. So seeing a previous version of her where she programmed this war machine to go blow up a planet, it just feels, it relies a lot on just the exposition of explaining I was different back then, now I feel differently, and it's not as interesting, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Dreadnought. All right, I guess that's it. We'll go to patron thoughts.
Did we have the Dreadnought conversation at the end of the last one where
it was offline?
It was.
Yeah.
It's a strange word that I only know. I know it from 3 places, which I guess are all legitimate places, but are all very incongruous places. One, the first one that I know it from is, I believe it is the name of a group of villains in G.I. Joe. 2 is the classic design of the acoustic guitar, as known as a Dreadnought design. And then it is also a style of ship, which I believe is the original, where it originally comes from. Never in a million years would I have looked at those 3 options and go, yeah, that word works. It's a cool sounding word, though. I understand why people like it.
It sounds, I always thought it was biblical. It sounds biblical to me, like the Dreadnought will come or something. There's like a
it sounds kind of like a mythical creature.
Well, it's very similar to Juggernaut too, I guess.
That's true. Yeah.
So it is Juggernaut is not biblical, right? No. What is the Juggernaut from? I don't know. I know he's from X-Men.
X-Men.
Yeah, but who is the original Juggernaut? Is it God?
No, I want to say, I think it might be like a Greek myth thing.
Oh, that makes sense.
Because I believe it's
let's see. Juggernaut. A juggernaut is a literal or metaphorical force regarded as merciless, destructive, unstoppable. It originated in the mid-19th century and was adapted from Sanskrit. Okay.
Oh, okay. Sure.
So it's actually fairly recent. It's a fairly recent word, I guess. Okay. Anyway. Yeah, I think one of the patrons is going to mention that it's also a name for a kind of jacket. So there might be another one.
Jacket?
Yeah, another use of the word dreadnought. But no, I was way off. I guess this one's based on the fact that it was as you were saying, it's a warship style that was built in the early 20th century.
Looking it up quickly, Dreadnought jacket's pretty cool looking jacket, so I can understand why they want to use the word.
B'Elanna should have been wearing one. It's cold in that missile exposed to space. This missile is the same thing as the the Discovery in Discovery. How that has all that space in it for no particular reason. Mm-hmm. This missile has a Hotel Ritz within it that you can just spend your days before it blows up.
Yeah, I'm also. I really hope they don't keep going back to the well of this thing also got sucked through the wormhole. Because that's going to get old pretty quick. Like, why stop there? Why not just be like, oh, look.
Jean-Luc Picard in the Enterprise.
Yeah, Jean-Luc Picard in the Enterprise.
They've been mentioning the Alpha Quadrant a lot, unfortunately. Yeah, but it's, I don't know. Again, I'll have final thoughts about it, but it is hopefully not. It's the amount of coincidence of what this ship runs into is kind of staggering at this point, and it flies in the face of what the concept is.
Yeah, for how interesting the concept started off with, I just want them to go to a new system or something. the Kazon is just not really getting it done for me. And
Yep.
I like we've talked about, I don't know how big this system is they've been flying through at fucking warp 9 for 10 months.
Yep, for over a year. It's a year at this point. She says a year in this
Yeah.
episode. The Kazon, just to just your mind, let your mind rest easy. The Kazon disappear after season 2. So
Okay.
they do escape
'cause-
their clutches.
I mean, if they've been going for a year, and let's assume they've been going
Fairly fast.
yeah, let's say just they're cruising speed, warp 5.
Yeah.
That still means they've gone 5 times the distance of the speed, five times the speed of light.
No, it's even farther than that. The warp scale is supposed to be exponential. So it's like like warp 5 is not 5 times faster than warp 1.
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea then.
Yeah.
Anyway, point being, they're probably in the different system by this point.
I think I mentioned it on the podcast. Someone did the Star Trek math and determined that it would take 2 months at maximum warp to cross the entire Federation. So,
oh yeah, okay.
This is the Kazon are apparently 5 times the size of the Federation at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, thanks, guys. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show and the content, you can support the show at patreon.com/thepenskyfile, patreon.com/thepenskyfile. And as always, now we'll go to patron thoughts. If you leave a couple dollars at the Patreon, you can leave your thoughts about upcoming episodes, and we read them and react to them. I'm going to open up your little chat thing here for Discord. I'll do the first one. It's a poem. Clef says, Dreadnought, Roxanne Dawson has 2 roles to play, Torres and a bomb she sent away. There's not much tension rising because the plot's not surprising. It's fine, but forgotten the next day. 3 planets who inexplicably believe what the Kazon say about Voyager out of 5. This next one's short. I'll read it too. Andrew Charlock says, Dreadnought, the definition of a mid episode. It's fine, but not one I rush to rewatch. It also raises a ton of questions about the caretaker that are never answered. 3 glitchy computers out of 5. This one is Bob J. Quester, or Coaster, I suppose you pronounce his name. Bob's comment says,
Dreadnought. Torres episodes are few but really good. I love that dealing with her past actions means having to argue against her younger voice. Economical and fun, kind of old-fashioned Star Trek, and brings back Maquis issues. Not marquee issues. Either way, I think it works. Brings back Maquis issues much as DS9's Blaze of Glory would a few months later.
Taxel Bear says,
I was just going to say, I just started reading a new book about the French resistance during World War II, and I didn't realize that's where Maquis comes from. That's what they called themselves they referred to them in World War II as the Maquis.
I mean, because there's the Maquis de Sade too, right? Is it a title?
No, I'm pretty sure it's the name of like the resistance fighters.
Oh, okay.
I'm just going to look it up now so I don't look like a total ass.
Because it is the Maquis de Sade, right? It's the
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, the Maquis. We're a rural guerrilla band of French and Belgian resistance fighters.
Yes. Okay.
Called Maquisards during the Nazi occupation of France.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, it's almost an unclever reference to something else. Yeah. You know, it's literally freedom fighters fighting against something.
It's one of those references that was probably a lot more clever before the internet existed.
Yes,
because you know, like you run into these things sometimes where after a while you realize, oh, they just lifted that wholesale from Lord of the Rings or something.
Yeah,
like the X-Men villain named Sauron.
Oh, sure.
Which is there's only one other place in all of human history where you come across that word. Or in Phantasm, where they literally do the Gom Jabbar sequence from Dune for some reason right in the middle of that movie.
Sometimes a good idea just needs to be done over.
Yeah.
Textile Bear says, Dreadnought, it's prototype again, but this time it's the Alpha Quadrant's problem. Still, not a bad idea for an episode, though one that drags a little, and constantly harking back to Alpha Quadrant stuff weakens the show premise more than it already has been weakened. Kyle Barrett has the next comment, which you can read.
Dreadnought. There's stuff to admire about this episode, but to do so, you've got to just get past the ridiculous idea that the caretaker, who was searching for life forms to mate with, picked up a big inanimate missile, put it in the Delta Quadrant, and then Voyager headed in the exact same direction for a whole year to catch up with it just before it hit a target. Being generous towards the episode just because I like B'Elanna, there's a nice metaphor with the missile representing her old Maquis self, her guilt and pain and destructive nature that she needs to tackle to truly move on. I just wish we had seen this character growth happen over the last 2 seasons to make it truly hit home. As it stands, it's a decent watch, even though it feels at times like I'm putting more effort into understanding the episode than the writers. Also, why bother carpeting the insides of a missile?
Carpet's the least of the problems, yeah.
3 Tom Paris B plots setting up an upcoming episode out of 5. Yeah.
There you go. They're building to something with Tom Paris and his wild lifestyle. Did I blink? Why did Chakotay tell him he didn't come in dressed properly at the meeting?
He came in late and his hair was all mussed up.
Oh, it's his hair that he was commenting on?
I think so. I don't think he looked like he was wearing the right unit. He just came in like not
suited up to the nines.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought I'd missed something. I thought he came in with like his tunic untucked or something, was tucking it in as he was coming in.
I don't think so.
Okay, just his hair. Eric McGowan says, Dreadnought, B'Elanna gets some really interesting episodes throughout the run of Voyager, but unfortunately she sometimes gets saddled with pure technobabble plots like this. The also technobabble-heavy B'Elanna episode Prototype was a mere 4 episodes ago, and it didn't contain the illogical Alpha Quadrant connections. This is just too much of a rehash. 2 out of 5. Next one is Point Extra G. As I'm sending it to you, I'll let you know. Apparently, I was reading a memory alpha that Roxanne Dawson, who plays B'Elanna, was complaining to the writers around this time that, and fairly, I think, that her plots to this point in Voyager's run had all involved her with herself or talking to an inanimate non-human thing.
Yeah, that's true.
She had that one where the Vidian took like her Klingon half out and separated her, and then she has a prototype, and then she has this one. So this is Point Extra G.
Dreadnought. The name comes from the battleship HMS Dreadnought, meaning that it did not dread, or rather, had no fear. Wow, really? I didn't realize
Makes
it was
sense.
that literal.
Yeah.
B'Elanna's AI...
Listen, people, I was going to make a Dreadnought, what your country can do for you joke at the start of this. And I'm glad that I didn't have to, because the Dreadnought's name is just as literal.
There's dread not to fear, but dread... Never mind. B'Elanna's AI clearly did not have any fears, and it is a fitting name. It's a little weird that this episode was made during season 2, since we've already had one episode, Prototype, that dealt with B'Elanna trying to stop an AI from killing innocent people. Comparing the two, I think that Dreadnought is the better episode, as it delves into B'Elanna's past in the Maquis, which is much more interesting. And what is it with all these damn AIs not believing their creators and turning against them?
Groppler John Zorn says, did you know that a Dreadnought was originally a coat, something like a parka? Isn't it interesting that the word could change its meaning over time from heavy weather-resistant coat to heavily armed battleship to heavily irritating 46 minutes of television in just a few hundred years? The best thing to come out of this episode is a bulletproof trivia question. What's the name of Naomi Wildman's father? That will make you undateable if you utter it aloud. 2 Grextingers out of 5. I don't know what that word is.
I'm sorry. I would like to say I was incorrect. It is not Dreadnoughts in G.I. Joe. It's Dreadnought with a K.
Okay. They anglicized it a little bit for us. Good. Dreadnought. That's a group, or is that a man?
It is a group.
Okay.
It is a fictional biker gang from the G.I. Joe Real American Hero toy line, comic book, and cartoon series. Affiliated with Cobra, offering their mercenary services as subordinates of Zartan.
Yep. That makes sense. Matthew Ross says, Dreadnought, every time I see this, I always muse that if the Cardassians had a fleet of these, the Federation would have been destroyed. That aside, the movie Dark Star with bombs that talk comes to mind, but that dark comedy with an alien beach ball is nowhere here. Aside from that, I did enjoy the tension of the way overpowered missile ship tried to be taken out. Why the missile has to announce its every move, though, is a bit weird. Also, the evil Tom setup begins, and how come Janeway can set the self-destruct sequence all by herself? 3 out of 5. Well, I'm glad to see that Tom Paris's story is actually going to amount to something.
Yeah, I assumed it would.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Janeway thing, why does she need to pilot it? Why can't she just set a course?
Yeah, tell the computer to track this thing until we blow up and get as close as you can to it.
I mean, although I guess based on this episode, it will go, yes, I can do that for you.
Yeah.
Not.
No.
Just leave the ship, and I will definitely do what you told me to do.
Dreadnought. I was hoping for an awkward interaction of when Tuvok agrees to stay behind. They sort of have an awkwardness about who gets to sit in the captain's chair at that point, because maybe Tuvok should drive the ship if Janeway's going to be there with him. But
Janeway should have been like, yes, you should stay behind. In fact, actually, I left something in my quarters in the escape pod.
A little bit of trivia. How many times over the course of the series is Voyager going to activate its self-destruct? This is the first time they've done it.
5.
3.
Ooh.
Seems low. That seems low to me. I would have gone way over that, but what do I know? Changeling says Dreadnought. Dreadnought? I think not. Actually, this episode was all right. 3 unstoppables out of 5 buses that couldn't slow down. And then this one's short too. I'll read this one. Latte Librarian says Dreadnought, a nice B'Elanna episode where we get to know her more, and a reminder that the Maquis were terrorists. 4 out of 5. Aaron Million has the next comment right here. It's Dreadnought.
This is a very good Torres episode, showing how she is still trying to come to grips with past actions while giving off a few echoes of TOS's The Doomsday Machine.
It is Doomsday Machine-y a little bit, yeah.
She should have gone the number 6 route and just asked it why, and then it would have self-destructed itself.
Yep. Outlogic that thing. I thought that's what she was trying to do in a lot of the sequences. She's like, well, if I'm here, how can you be there? And the computer's like, and then blows up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I liked all the crew members trying to stay on the bridge when Janeway ordered them to escape pods. It showed their commitment to duty, the ship, and her personally. I thought the ending seemed a bit rushed. Were they able to salvage engine parts and quantum torpedoes like they discussed earlier in the episode? I'm going to say no, because that thing blew up pretty good.
Yep.
We don't find out because we had to use up a few minutes at the beginning with the out-of-place opening in sickbay concerning the doctor still searching for a name. 4 Doomsday Machines out of 5.
I liked at the end when B'Elanna was like using her phaser to cut into that little control panel in the last moment. Janeway's got the auto-destruct, and the auto-destruct is like, Voyager will destroy itself in 30 seconds. And Janeway goes like, B'Elanna, beam back here, get on an escape pod and get the hell out of here. There's a lot of running around to do in the last 30 seconds of your life.
You really need to get back here now. She should have been like, I feel like I literally should be anywhere else.
Yep.
Did you like the way that she ultimately gains control by activating the other voice and having them argue with each other like Ronald Reagan and the Ayatollah in the Cafe 80s and Back to the Future 2?
It was I thought it was more along the line of that famous like Noam Chomsky and Bill Buckley debate or something. Just having them go at it. That to me is a more interesting solution than what she does ultimately. I was surprised that was a penultimate twist. You know what I mean?
Yeah, me too. I thought that was going to be it. I thought that was going to be the thing that kind of put her over the top.
Right, because that feels kind of satisfying. Like the Cardassian original programming starts to fight back against her or something. I don't know. But then I don't even know what she was doing. She was just shooting that phaser for 20 minutes at the wall.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if she was trying to cut through the plate that was there or if she was shooting through the little holes.
Right. I don't think it's ultimately understood what B'Elanna was aiming at.
That doesn't matter.
Ria Lavi says, Dreadnought, technobabble, and because plot abounds in this episode. Yes, because plot does abound in this. I'm not sure there's much more they could have done with this, as the concept itself is pretty weak. I do like Dawson's performance, as always, so this isn't complete trash for me. My favorite moment was Tuvok asking to stay with Janeway on the self-destructing Voyager. 2 spoonhead missiles out of 5. Another short one. Jaron Hatch says, Dreadnought, I'll save you guys a podcast episode with one line. This is the better of the, quote, Torres obsessively fixes technology, end quote, episodes of season 2. Great. Moving on. 3 B'Elanna Torres out of 5. And then here's the final. Is this the final one? It is the final one, so I'll send it to you. This is Patrick Seba with a little poem.
Well, we all might have that crazy 1X who let you inside her, then lightning fields flexed. But Torres one-upped, her ex doesn't suck, because when she does blow, the planet suplexed. Wow.
That one's a little bit more avant-garde than I'm used to for my poems.
Yowza. 4 elementary school teachers attempting to pronounce Banarian Grenzgegnecht Waldman out of 5.
That's the name. Okay, that's the name that Groppler John Zorn said. That Grexton or whatever.
Yes.
That's the baby's name. Gotcha. Makes sense. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, patrons, for leaving your thoughts about the episode called Dreadnought. Thank you for supporting the show. All right, Clay, on our scale of 1 to 5, what are you going to give this one? The patrons were, well, were they? There was a couple 4s in there.
Yeah, kind of in the middle.
A little middling, yeah.
No, nothing less than a 3, I don't think.
There was 1 or 2 2s, I believe, but just a couple.
I'm going to give it a 3.
I'll give it a 3 too. It's pretty middling. I think Andrew Cherlog said that it's a definition of a middling episode. I think that is true. Honestly, for the amount of contrivance in it, I was impressed by how much it actually held my attention, because I thought it was kind of silly the entire way through, but it worked for me eventually.
Yeah, it's, the contrivances are there, but it is also kind of fun when a story just keeps escalating and turning on you.
It is.
Whether or not it makes total sense.
No, I just wish that's a common weak writing thing. I think I've mentioned it in previous episodes. It's like an episode that naturally, like for Star Trek, I think Disaster is a good episode that's like how multiple compounding problems can build on each other in a way that feels natural, and it's not just the writer pulling the rug out from under your feet and saying like, no, actually, yeah, like your example of when they turn the ship off and she comes back and then the ship just leaves. It's like a laughable version of that. It's like, okay, so I guess you didn't do anything, and the writers realized that they had to get the ship to get going again, so they're just going to have the ship say, no, boo-boo, I fooled you, and then takes off. It's just silly.
Yeah.
3 for me, 3 for Clay. That's it for Dreadnought. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Patreon.com/the Pensky File. Anything else? No, Lower Decks is continuing on the Patreon, I think, at this point. We're probably well into October. Happy Halloween. Halloween is coming up. There's probably going to be some Halloween-themed stuff on the channel.
Oh, yeah. We got to figure out what to do for Halloween.
Yeah, we're running out of options, sort of. So we'll, not time, but options about what we can do, at least for the Star Trek stuff and the horror movies or whatever. Yeah. We'll figure that out. It'll be on Patreon. I guess that's it. Clay, anything you want to say?
Join us this month on the Rotten Horror Picture Show Patreon as we talk about Pet Sematary, as we get into the second string of Stephen King.
Yeah. Only 3 more.
Only a couple left, yeah. It's going to be Pet Sematary in October, Children of the Corn in November, and then we're going to be rounding it out with Stephen King's It from 1990.
One of the listeners
Lost
has been
classics.
Demanding thinner after every post that you guys put up, but I think I told you about that. But we just you can't do thinner. But I'm saying it on the podcast now, just so he hears.
That's a good one to have done, but it's just like there's so many Stephen King movies that it's just tough to whittle them down.
Have you seen the SNL sketch that sort of parodies Thinner with John Hamm? Where's the sexy sax man?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that a Thinner?
Yeah, because he's the sort of lead, the guy who's in Brooklyn 99, Andy Samberg, is the lead, and when he gets out of his limo at the start, he steps on like a homeless guy's totem, and the guy curses him.
Nice.
And then it's a good sketch. It makes me laugh anyway. John Hamm plays the sexy saxophone playing Ghost. That's it. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thank you for supporting the show. The next episode is, I'll look at my little list here. It's Life Signs. No, it's Death Wish. I'm sorry, it's Death Wish. I think it's a Q episode.
He's got a Death Wish. Is Charles Bronson in it? I hope so.
Why did Investigations come up first? Is Death Wish produced very last or something? I might be wrong. I can't go back now, though. It's too late. But it might be a Q episode. It might be something else. We'll see when we get there next week.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thank you for supporting the show. We'll see you later.